I don't even know if we're so I don't know. I did like an 5 hour long stream covering the election stuff. Obviously, for those of you who know anything about me, I'm uh, whatever anti-Trump. I voted for Kamala Harris. And let's just say she did not win the election, or she's not going to. It is so statistically improbable that it's not even worth considering as like a legitimate possibility. Not that it can't happen, but it's extremely unlikely that she's going to win. So I guess you can expect Trump to win. Skibbity toilet gyat moment, that's so true. So unless some wacky shit happens tomorrow, which, I mean, considering how much Trump has been winning by, I don't think is going to happen. I think it's safe to say that Kamala lost. And I guess the next question is, where do we even go from here? I mean, sure, it's whatever. I guess we have till January 6th until he's actually in office, but I'm genuinely concerned, especially as somebody that's trans, because there are some very concerning anti-LGBTQ plus bills that Trump has proposed himself. And I'm not just talking about Project 2025, which is terrifying in its own right. What I wish that Kamala Harris had really emphasized and honed in on is the fact that there is a ton of overlap between Project 2025 and Agenda 47, which is Trump proposed policies, long story short. And a couple of the Trump policies involve, but are not limited to, criminalizing access to HRT for anyone below the age of 18, as well as puberty blockers, meaning if that you're trans and you have dysphoria, you are now forced, regardless of the state that you live in, you're going to be forced to go through the wrong puberty and experience dysphoric changes, which is obviously a detriment to the mental health of trans people. If that wasn't bad enough, he also intends on making it illegal to legally change your gender. He instead is in favor of a bill that would make it illegal to identify as anything other than your birth sex. Like, even if you disagree with trans people or you think that like trans people are weird or whatever, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having that opinion in of itself, but you have to acknowledge we're pretty damn harmless and we have a right to exist. Like, I don't see why Trump would want to target queer people. I don't see what the benefit is. I don't see who benefits from it. People like me just get harmed by it. And I'm lucky I live in a blue state, because trans people that live in red states are going to have to deal with both anti-trans federal legislation that's most likely going to get passed, as well as anti-trans legislation from the state that will almost certainly get passed. And it's pretty scary, to say the very least. I can't say that I am not worried about it. I don't even know who I should be more worried about, whether it's myself or other trans people that have it worse, or both. I guess both is the correct answer, and that's sort of how I feel. But yeah, I can't sleep yet, even though I'm really tired because, the election results are yikes. I don't know. If you voted for Trump, fine. I don't think you're evil or whatever, but do think that there are consequences to that you may not have been aware of. I think that there are a lot of people that are misled, but they're not hateful. I think there are a lot of people that don't actually look into what policies Trump has implemented and what he proposes and what he has proposed in the past. Now, something I've noticed is Trump is not the centrist, he's not the moderate that he used to be. He actually used to be a moderate. He used to be kind of wishy-washy with gay marriage when at the time that was like a controversial take or whatever, right? And he would whatever switch back and forth between his position. In 2016, he wasn't like particularly pro LGBTQ plus, but he wasn't as against it then as he is now. And that's the terrifying thing, right? I think that the trans military ban was obviously unnecessary, but it seems like it's going to pale in comparison. If you compare Trump's rhetoric from 2016 to his rhetoric now, the difference is scary. His rhetoric has gotten so much more extreme. I'm worried that the nation is going to be divided. I'm worried about the well-being of our democracy and the electoral process. Not that I think that he rigged the election, right? I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist, but that I'm of the belief that you can vote democracy out, but you can't vote it back in. And that to me is terrifying. You can't vote it back in, plain and simple. And considering the fact that Trump tried to overthrow the results of an election that he lost in 2020, sending his sycophants to storm the Capitol and not telling them to stop for multiple hours despite being fully aware and fully capable, combined with the fact that he has explicitly stated that he intends on suspending the Constitution and also intends on amending the Constitution in order to decrease people's rights. And that's, I mean, I don't know. Look, I don't blame you if right off the bat maybe you think, oh, these issues don't affect me, or they don't matter, or both candidates are the same, or, well, what about his economic policy? But two things. And if you want, I could get into economic policy at a later time and have a debate with that, because his economic policies aren't particularly good either. Something I've noticed with the Republican Party as a whole, and I'm not blaming individual people necessarily for this, maybe some, not others, depending on who we're talking about in the MAGA movement, are just incredibly hateful, cold, unempathetic. Now, I'm not saying that the other side is perfect by any means. I criticize, I guess, my own side all the time. Now, keep in mind, I didn't vote for Kamala because I think she's an amazing candidate. I voted for her because she's not a terrifying candidate. She's not somebody that I think will genuinely damage the country. And again, we don't know for certain that Trump's going to win, but it's very unlikely that Kamala wins at this point. Unless something crazy happens and it's like, oh shit, like looks like all the mail-in ballots are pro-Kamala. I don't think that any states that have gone red are going to swing back for this election. From what I understand, Trump did not win by this much before the mail-in ballots in terms of electoral votes. Like this is not something that's like, oh, okay, maybe tomorrow it'll be fixed, I don't think. And that's really scary to think about. Something I've noticed, and maybe this is a select few people, so I have confirmation bias, but something I've noticed is the fact that There are people that are either centrist or maybe center left that are completely indifferent, or even leftists that are indifferent, that think that the outcome is the same. It's not the same, it's fundamentally different. Sure, you could argue that Kamala Harris isn't the best. Sure, you could argue that she might do some things that suck, right? But if she's president, if she were to become president, I wouldn't be worried that, oh shit, like, what if my access to HRT as a trans person gets restricted? And for those of you who don't know, that's one of the worst things you can do to a trans person, is forcing them to detransition. Like, if this happens, the suicide rate is going to skyrocket for us. It's going to be more than 41% in this country. You know, I know there's the classic 41% meme. It's going to become like the 51% meme, most likely. I feel completely powerless. I don't really know what I can do. I don't really know. I mean, I can complain on the internet, and that's what I'm doing right now. But I'm not sure how productive that is. Frankly, I don't think that I can do anything. But I can share my thoughts and I can vent before I go to bed, because I literally cannot sleep. Another thing I'd like to address is the notion that I'm being overly dramatic. Okay. From an outside perspective, especially if you're not invested in politics, no offense. But if you're an outside perspective, especially if you're not invested in politics, you might see, oh, there's like the two sides. And they have their slight disagreements. That was true in the past. You know, if, say, for instance, we go back to an election in 2008, what would that have been? McCain versus Obama? If, say, for instance, I time traveled back then, but it was an alternate universe and McCain won, right? That might not be my preference. I would rather Obama win than McCain. But I'm not going to have a meltdown over it either. I'm not going to be somebody that is all that invested, right? And the reason is because, okay, what's the worst case scenario? The economic policies that get passed make the country slightly worse. Fine. Maybe things are more expensive. Fine. Maybe corporations hoard more wealth. That sucks, but fine. It's not unlivable. But the scary thing is, I don't know if this country is going to be livable, especially not in certain states, for certain groups of people. I mean, hell, if we take a look at the type of legislation that's been proposed against trans people in this country, in conservative states, it's scary. And it's not just them targeting trans kids either, it's adults as well. Again, I can't stress this enough, but there have been some wacky bills proposed. There's been one in Oklahoma that proposed that gender affirming care ought to be banned for anyone under the age of 26, meaning that if I lived in Oklahoma and that law got passed, no more HRT for me. That is a genuine possibility for people going forward. Is a bill like that screws them over, even if they're an adult, right? Now, if I, because I live in a blue state, so I'm not as worried about it. Like, unless there's a federal ban on HRT, which is going to be harder to do, I'm not as worried about myself. I'm still a little bit stressed, but I'm more worried about other trans people losing access to this necessary medical care. I think that that's like a reasonable thing to be worried about. Like and maybe it's difficult to empathize if you're not trans, but think of it this way, okay? If you're struggling to empathize, imagine that you wake up tomorrow and your brain has been transported into a woman's body, all right? Just like an average looking woman, okay? Not particularly good or bad looking, but you're a woman People treat you like a woman in society. People refer to you as such. If you're, let's say you're a guy, and vice versa. If you're a conservative woman, imagine that you wake up tomorrow and your brain is in a male body, right? Same brain structure, different body, right? You're stuck like that. People start treating you like a man. People start using he, him pronouns. People refer to you as a man. How would you feel if not only was that your new life, but you're not even allowed to transition? You're not even allowed to medically alter yourself to improve your well-being, to improve your self-esteem, to allow yourself to be you. That's what it's like. I mean, there have been studies that have been conducted that demonstrate that the average brain of a trans woman is far closer to that of the average cis woman than that of the average cis man. And what I mean by that is there are going to be certain regions of the brain that by default inform gender. And sometimes people are born with a brain structure where their brain informs them that they are a gender that does not correspond with their birth sex, right? And that's something called gender incongruence. Now, gender incongruence is a medical condition in of itself. However, it becomes very serious when we talk about dysphoria, which is also a medical condition that's derived from gender incongruence. It is something that references a level of distress as a result of that incongruence. That distress can be debilitating for a lot of people. The only way to treat it is through transition. Think of it this way, all right? Imagine you, or maybe somebody close to you, has really severe depression. They constantly have the urge to SH. They constantly have the urge to unalive themselves. And sometimes they might act on it. Sometimes they might not. They're still technically alive. Now, it has nothing to do with situational depression. Their situation is fine. It's the best situation you could ask for. But something wrong with their brain chemistry, okay? Well, what's the solution? Well, obviously medication, right? Now, unfortunately, with gender dysphoria, there's no magical gender dysphoria go away pill, right? I wish there was. I would have taken it by now. But that's not a thing. You can't, because it is so fundamental to the brain structure itself, you cannot really do anything to alter it, which, I mean, unfortunate, but that's the reality of the matter. Ultimately, you can alter your physical body in a way that matches your brain, and that's what mitigates dysphoria. Again, dysphoria is a legitimate medical condition recognized in the DSM-5. It's a specific fact, right? And I wish that Trump and Trump-adjacent people would understand that going against science to be whatever, anti-woke isn't something that actually benefits the country. Who is benefiting from me potentially being at risk of having more dysphoria because I might lose access to gender affirming care? In which case, I don't know if it's even worth living at that point, if that were to happen. Again, I live in a blue state, but if I didn't, and if I wasn't so lucky, I might be contemplating right now. And that's just me. That's just me. I can't speak for all trans people, but I know for me, that's what I would most likely be doing right now. I am oh so grateful I live in a blue state. With that being said, this anti-scientific rhetoric is something that I find incredibly harmful. I don't see it as any different from someone who denies the existence of depression or anxiety or any other mental health disorder. because that's what it is. You're denying a legitimate mental health disorder if you deny that. It's in the DSM-5. It's something that has been demonstrated to improve the mental well-being of the patient if they actually get treated for it. And the fact that people like Trump disregard that, the fact that he just wants to straight up ban this care for anyone under the age of 18 is ludicrous. He has not looked at any of the medical literature. I guarantee it. What the actual medical literature says on the matter is that it is optimal to, and this only occurs if the parent consents, the child consents, and the doctor consents after diagnosing the kid through a very rigorous process, gender dysphoria, to go on puberty blockers. Keep in mind, not HRT, puberty blockers. Now, puberty blockers are reversible. And what I mean by that is if, say, for instance, you stop taking them by the time you're of the age of medical consent, which is going to vary from state to state. But once you're of the age of medical consent, let's say you stop taking them. Okay. The quote, irreversible health ramification is that you're a late bloomer. That's it, which there's nothing wrong with. And I'd be willing to risk that over, I don't know, somebody ending their own life. And that's what pisses me off is people that support Trump might not think about stuff like that. And again, I don't expect people to care about trans issues in particular. I don't expect that to be I don't expect you to be a single issue voter. I'm using it as an example for maybe, I don't know, something to have more empathy with. Look, I get it, you know. Maybe you have other opinions on whatever, foreign policy or the economy. And that's, again, a separate discussion. I don't think that cutting taxes for corporate elites benefits the economy. It just allows them to hoard more wealth. But again, it's this weird level of hatred. And it's gotten to a point where people that used to vote Republican consistently, and this is, I guess, the minority of Republicans, but it's still have stopped voting for MAGA Republicans because of how crazy the rhetoric has gotten, because of how crazy the policy proposals are. Again, I think that if you take my dad, for example, okay, I know I have a father. Who would have guessed? Whoa, trans girl with a father figure. What? What the heck? No way. In all seriousness, he was somebody that voted Republican every single year. He never voted Democrat. Why would he? He agrees with the economic policies of Republicans. But even in 2016, Trump was insane enough to the point where my dad decided, despite voting for Republicans for years, that he was going to vote independent because he hated both Hillary and Trump. Now, what's interesting is my grandparents, who also voted Republican. Hell, I'm pretty sure they were also anti-abortion and whatnot due to religious beliefs, right? They did something that even my dad was surprised by, and even he didn't do at the time. And what they said is that they are never voting for a Republican candidate ever again, period. Not after Donald Trump. The reason? They didn't appreciate any of the hateful, divisive rhetoric. It was really that simple. The divisiveness, the abrasiveness, the hatred, that's not what they stood for. They might disagree with me politically on other things, maybe even most things in terms of economics or um, whatever it may be, even abortion. But they had enough empathy to realize, okay, like this is somebody that is uh, off the rails. And they realized, well, okay, like this isn't what Jesus stood for. Jesus did not stand for narcissism, delusions of grandeur, self-centeredness, all things that greediness, all things that represent Trump. It was everything that they were against as Catholics. And um, eventually, however many years later, my dad came to the realization that actually that wasn't an extreme position. He ended up agreeing years later, and he's also never voting for a Republican ever again, unless there's some serious change, right? And it doesn't seem like there's going to be in the near future. With that being said, he still holds the same economic policies. If there are, say, for instance, local politicians that have dissociated themselves from MAGA and are just regular old establishment Republicans, like Bush era Republicans, he'll vote for them, right? Um, now, I might disagree with that, but there's no hatred or animosity. There's no lack of empathy. There's no divisiveness. That's just we disagree on economic policy, and that's the extent of it. But it's gotten to the point where we're in a country where the person who is being elected for president denies the results of the election from 2020 still, and especially during 2020, did a coup attempt, tried to send in false electorates. Um, uh, like I just don't understand. He's the most divisive president we've ever had, and um, regardless of where you stand politically, I hope it's reasonable to I hope my position is reasonable here. I hope you would understand why, regardless of whether or not you think that whatever abortion is good or bad or whatever you think trans people are valid, it's like this weird level of hatred and animosity for anyone that doesn't agree with you. This weird level of hatred and animosity for democracy, for the institutions that be, for the the electoral process itself. I wish people stopped buying into conspiracy theories. When did when did the Republican Party become the conspiracy theory party? Why is that so rampant? Why is it just, oh, this prominent right wing figure will just make shit up and then, oh, okay, I guess I'm gonna believe it. You're just eating the slop, you're taking the bait, etc. Hold on, my phone is getting lower on battery. Luckily, I have this thing called a charger. So I'm gonna plug it in. Hopefully my phone does not overheat. I'm gonna be very sad if it does. If it overheats, I'm gonna cry. I'm actually not gonna. Maybe I do cry. Who knows? I can be very emotional. Hold on. Give me a sec. Um, okay. Right. Where was I? So I I just wish that people were kinder, had more empathy, didn't feel the need to divide the nation. Like whatever happened to discourse? Whatever happened to intellectual honesty? Actually debating between different modes of analysis, actually debating real ideas or even just philosophy, whatever it may be. But it's gotten to a point where some people are so divorced from reality that like what do I do if somebody is a flat earther? Do I debate them out of it? Do I lay out every single reason why the earth isn't flat? I mean, that gets very tiring after a while. I view things like, I don't know, COVID denialism in the same light. It's just you're denying science. Why do you think you know better than all of the scientists and medical professionals? The answer is you don't, nor does any politician. But it's like this sense of entitlement, acting like he knows better. Donald Trump, the person who's running for president, who all his life was handed everything, didn't have to work that hard, was somebody that I suppose uh, got to a point where he thinks that because he can do something, that he should, and that there's no reason why he wouldn't. That's his mindset. He wants to do what he can get away with. Even if you agree with some of Trump's policies, if you actually look at his track record of things he's both said and done, you will notice a lot of contradictions, right? It's not that he's changed his position, because he will flip flop and oscillate back and forth. He's oscillated back and forth on gay marriage. He's oscillated back and forth on a lot of things. And I don't think you want a guy who is so dishonest that they can't even decide whether or not they support gay marriage over the course of multiple decades. If you're oscillating back and forth, you're not being genuine. I wish people saw that, hey, maybe this guy isn't that honest. Maybe this guy is lying to me. Maybe he's using me. Maybe this is actually not somebody that has my best interest at heart. Maybe this is somebody who doesn't care about the country, about democracy, about the ability for people to choose who they vote for. And now that Kamala Harris is essentially lost, sure, I'm upset. Fair enough. If you notice that, congratulations. I am. But that doesn't mean I'm going to go around being like, yes, let's storm the Capitol. Let's break in. Let's break and enter into the Capitol building as soon as it's January 6th to make sure that we can avoid having Trump be in office at all costs. As much as I don't want Trump to be in office, I don't want to do an insurrection. I don't want to fundamentally destroy democracy. But that's the thing, is that's also very difficult to take that position as well, because is it better to destroy democracy within or externally to build something new? I don't know. Genuinely, I don't have the answer to that. But again, you can vote somebody into destroying democracy. You can vote democracy out, you can't vote it back in once it's already out. That's the scary thing. Just keep in mind, he has explicitly stated he intends on suspending the Constitution. And look, I have my own views. I have my own ethical framework. I have my own sets of beliefs, ideals, morals, ethics, etc. But I understand that suspending the Constitution for selfish gain, to gain more power, the fact that Trump intends on centralizing power, the fact that part of what was it called? Something 47. I'm spacing. I looked it up not that long ago, before this stream. What was it? Agenda 47? Anyhow, one of the things that he explicitly states is that he wants there to be a far more centralized power in the executive branch, as in he wants the president, in which case that would be him, to have substantially more power, more say, etc. He is against the concept of checks and balances. He wants to avoid them at all costs. He claims that, oh, well, I want to destroy the woke bureaucracy. Well, what are you going to replace it with? Oh, he's going to replace it with loyalists. And he admits this. He wants an echo chamber of people that will just validate anything and everything he says. And that's fucking terrifying. Genuinely terrifying. Why does he need an echo chamber? He's already narcissistic enough without one. I don't see the need for one, personally. Regardless, I just I don't see how people don't see a problem with that. Now, are the election results going to change from me doing this stream? No. Voting day is over, and there's not much we can do. But I do want to analyze going forward some of the potential policies as well as actually implemented policies from Trump. That's something I intend on doing content on, is analyzing especially controversial policies that he may have, seeing, okay, are they what people say they are? Are they as bad as people say they are? What are the shortcomings? What are the advantages? What's the idea behind it, etc., right? I still want to do things in good faith, but at the same time, it becomes very difficult when it's like we live in such a divisive nation that it's like half the country is divorced from reality. It's like people still think that, oh, they're putting microchips in the vaccines, which is crazy. I like that should be like a very fringe minority. That shouldn't be a semi-popular opinion among conservatives. Like that should be a meme. That should be like something that like people say on both sides as a joke to make fun of insane people and nothing else. That's what it should be. But it's turned into an actual position that people hold. Again, I just don't understand what this whole anti-science approach is. Whether it be with trans people, with COVID, in retrospect, everything. That combined with the divisiveness and lack of empathy, it's just, I don't know. Sorry if I'm not reading chat much, but there's some points that I really want to stress because I do feel like they're quite important. In order to read chat, I'm going to have to turn my brightness up. I hope my phone doesn't overheat. Bear with me. Boy, chat is moving fast. How do we have 350 people? Damn. Double tap to smash like if you agree with my sentiment. Oh my god, chat's moving too fast. How do I read this? Don't look at chat, Femyoz. It's okay, Haughty. Okay, you know what? It's probably better if I don't look at chat. Thank you for the advice. Anyways. Do not agree at all? Okay, what do you disagree with? Do you think it's actually good that Trump wants to turn our country into an autocracy, something that he has demonstrated through his proposed policies, through his words, through his actions, etc.? Yes, you think it's a good thing. So you just like admit to being a fascist then, like an unironic fascist. And that's not a term I use lightly. I don't call George W. Bush a fascist, right? Like this is what I mean when I say like half the country is divorced from reality. Like you think that an authoritarian dictatorship is a good thing, as if those have historically worked at all. What if I were to say, I think communism can work? What would you do? You wouldn't point to a historic example of it not working, would you? That would be crazy. Because that would make you a hypocrite. Trump loves kids. This is true. He was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. But guys, I'm sure it's just a crazy coincidence that he just so happens to have the exact same tasted younger women as Epstein. I'm sure there's nothing suspicious there. Define fascism. Yeah, so when I determine whether or not somebody is a fascist, I usually do it based on a few main characteristics, okay? One of them is authoritarianism, which Trump qualifies for. Another one is hypernationalism. Yep, Trump qualifies for that. And I would argue that and being far right are all core tenets of being fascism, right? Or sorry, of being a fascist, right? Of fascism itself, right? And all of those characteristics apply to him, right? So I would argue he is a fascist, right? I'm not just saying that to make him sound bad. That's literally just what he is. Anyways, your arguments are very weak. Incredible counter argument. Anyways, again, I don't really see what the big ass nose. Yes, it's because I'm actually working for George Soros. Working for the Jewish cabal. How is he a fascist? Yeah, I just explained that, right? So, extreme authoritarianism, hypernationalism, and him being far right. All right, these are the key components, right? These are the key components of fascism, right? You didn't explain anything, just opinions? Yeah, but I explained the reasoning for the opinions, right? Now, you could maybe like try to dispute the logic and reasoning, but you're not going to do that because that would require you to engage in some amount of substance. You're lost, bro? How am I lost? Anyways. OnlyFans, argument invalid. Yeah, this is what I mean. It's like these can't be real people, right? Like these are not real people. Like if you think that the substance of an argument is contingent upon anything other than the logic and reasoning or the evidence behind it, you're probably not a very rational thinker. You think irrationally. You're very emotional, right? You're very woman-brained, okay? Maybe you should just transition. Just start taking estrogen, all right? You'll be better off if you can't think rationally. At least you aren't in Canada. It's tough here. I'm not sure what the issue is in Canada, but it doesn't look like it's going to be very good here. You're emotional? What arguments have I made on the sole basis of emotion? I guess the most emotional argument I made was that like I think it's bad that people are like very unempathetic when it comes to how policy affects people. But that's something I could justify with like a meta-ethical framework. But I'm not going to get into that. But if you, I mean, I guess some other day, if you really wanted me to, I could. Anyways. Look, the fact of the matter is, I don't see a world in which Trump does anything worthwhile. He lies out of his ass. He says, "Oh, I'm going to be such a strong leader. Other world leaders are going to fear me." Okay, so what about your plan to not fund Ukraine with weapons that we're not using anymore because we have newer weapons? We're literally just giving them old weapons we don't need, right? If that's the case, what is anybody going to gain out of not funding Ukraine? If you are so worried about looking like a bitch, first of all, that automatically makes you a bitch. That makes you look like a bitch. But more importantly, if Putin sees, oh, okay, so here we have Donald Trump, who is not willing to supply aid to Ukraine, well, fuck it, let's just invade Ukraine, right? So that destroys this whole argument of, oh, if if I was in office, Russia would never have invaded Ukraine, right? That's what he said. He has said that. But if it's the case that under Trump, he is not going to supply aid to Ukraine, but Biden would, wouldn't that mean that Putin would actually be even more incentivized to invade Ukraine while Trump is in office? I'm just saying. Were you a boy during 2016? I was a fucking child. Holy shit. That was way back in the day. Way back in the day. I did not know much about politics back then. No, sirree. You are still a child? How old do you think I am? You're saying I'm still a child. How old am I? Still a child? Okay, how old am I? Let's see some numbers in chat. Oh shit, maybe this is delayed because I'm on my phone. You look 14, not even 25, 16. I missed 45 minutes, no worries. 64, that's true. How did you know? 16, 40. Okay. Anyways, 24, 21. Okay. I'm 20, so I'm an adult. 20 is not a child. Unless you're like in the Minecraft SMP community and you're trying to levy false accusations against a YouTuber, all right, then you're an adult if you're 20. That is an adult, right? Now it's a young adult, but it's still an adult nonetheless. 22 is full brain development. That's not even true. It would be 25 or 26, I believe. So clearly your brain hasn't fully developed if you're going to cite an incorrect statistic at me. Clearly my brain is more developed than yours. Either way, your brain doesn't have to be 100% developed. It has to be developed enough for you to make decisions as an autonomous adult. Anyways, talk normal. That's what I'm doing. Why do you look so confused? Wait, what am I confused about? Oh shit, I am confused. I don't know what I'm meant to be confused about. Fuck, I hate when that happens. Alright, I'm gonna drink some more water. I'm thirsty. Anyways, where was I? Right, election. So, based on the election results, it's extremely unlikely that Harris wins, right? It's not even close. Even with mail-in ballots, like, it's not very likely. Is it physically possible? Sure, maybe. I haven't done the math on that yet. But it's not something to count on. It's not something you should be, I mean, maybe you could be hopeful about it if you want, but don't have an expectation if you're anything like me. Don't expect that to happen because I don't think it's going to, right? It's not likely. I've seen other streamers after I was done streaming and had long since then figured out, okay, Trump's winning this election. Looked at their other streams and they're coping. Like these other leftist streamers are just coping, being like, well, there's still a decent chance Kamala wins. No, there isn't. There's almost zero chance. This is a lie. You are giving false hope. Please do not give anybody false hope. Do not give somebody false hope or some sort of expectation that's unrealistic like that. It's not going to happen. It's just not. Another thing I've found kind of infuriating is when I ask questions, not even as like a gotcha, like, oh, I bet that you're not going to have an answer, but out of genuine curiosity for why somebody is voting for Trump in my chat or whatever, right? Because sometimes I would get messages being like, hey, I'm voting for Trump. And this is something that has happened consistently before election day, right? For many weeks, right? And I would ask, okay, what Trump policies are you in favor of? And the majority of people did not answer with a policy, right? Now, if you were to make the argument that Trump is the less bad candidate and that Kamala Harris's policies are so bad that you must necessarily vote for Trump, it's not a good argument based on what the actual policies are, but it's one you could make technically. In which case, sure, I might engage with that. Though now I don't know if there's any point. I don't know if this style of just me ranting is something that's gonna, whatever, convince people to convert to my side. And if they don't, it's fine. But I think it's good to understand the perspective of people you disagree with, right? And don't take me as like the uh, sole proprietor of all leftist thought, okay? I'm not. Nobody is, frankly. Sounds like a big responsibility, right? So maybe you dislike me, you don't like my demeanor, you think I'm an asshole, or you think I'm cringe. That's fine. Um, there are going to be other leftists that think differently, that talk differently, that have a different sense of humor, that act differently, that present themselves differently, different aesthetic, etc. Right? There's got to be at least a few that you like kind of vibe with, right? I would hope you disagree with them, and you know you disagree with them, but you vibe with them a little bit, right? Because I will do this with people that I disagree with, whether it be content creators or people, where um, like I'm willing to reach across the aisle, and there are some conservatives that are good about that too, right? But I feel like that's diminishing. I feel like that's a lot more rare now. Like rarely do I see a conservative in my chat that's disagreeing with me in good faith and they really just want to talk about individual policies. I never see that anymore. That's really fucking sad because those are discussions I used to have all the time and those were fun. Um, Now, part of it is it's also a lot more difficult to have a discussion when your chat is moving at a million miles an hour like it is right now, um, because my viewer count is absurdly high for a phone stream. But I digress. I also have criticisms of Kamala Harris too. People get this wrong impression that I'm like super pro Kamala Harris because I'm voting against Trump. It's not true either. I think that there was some grain of truth. In fact, a lot of the criticism of Kamala is true. Now, that criticism is not as robust or as substantial as the criticism against Trump, but it still existed nonetheless, and I still agreed with a lot of it. Now, the criticism that I agreed with was criticism involving her answering a question when she was asked how she would run the country differently from Joe Biden. She said that there was nothing she could think of. This is probably the stupidest answer you could possibly give. The stupidest answer you could give. I understand she's trying to appeal to centrist liberals, but clearly that didn't work. What she should have done is just been like, well, I'm going to go for more populist economic policies that benefit the working class. I intend on whatever, right? Going from there. I intend on taking a firmer stance on X, Y, or Z, or maybe I disagree with Biden on this specific issue. That would have looked strong. She would have looked like her own candidate, etc. But her just being in line with, well, yeah, I don't see any issues with Biden. I don't. see what I would do differently, then that destroys your entire message of hope and progress, does it not? She was still the more viable of the two candidates. She was still less bad than Trump. But if she were to be in office for 4 years, great. Now I don't have to worry about losing access to HRT potentially, or the inevitable consequences of, I don't know, in red states, there's very likely to be legislation that prevents people from having access to it. And that's great and all, that's not an issue, but what do we get? Okay, we get 4 more years or 8 more years of standard neoliberal complacency. What is that going to do for us? I feel like electoral politics is one of the most depressing things imaginable. It's like you have to vote between somebody that's going to do nothing or somebody that's going to make the country worse. And it's like every term, either the country has no changes at all or maybe slightly positive changes, and it's like, oh fuck, now the country is like infinitely worse when the other person gets elected. That shit sucks, man. I don't want to have to vote for somebody I disagree with. For ages, I've been saying that we ought to have proportional representation in this country. I don't understand why we don't. Like, if it's the case that we did, then there could be other, third parties that are actually successful, right? They might not have as much influence if they're not as popular, but they could have some influence, right? See, here's the thing: is right now in our current system, it is the most electorally beneficial to have 2 blocks, because if one of those blocks breaks up, splits, etc., you're fucked. Good luck. You're losing the election, right? Now, if we're doing proportional representation, that's a little bit different. That's a little bit different because you can have different ideological positions, different ideas for how policies should be implemented or created or whatever it may be, right? And you can have like these different parties, but when it comes down to it, a lot of them are able to work together, right? And when they're able to work together, they're able to get things done, right? That's like the ideal system. But it feels like we're so far from that. It feels like people just want a big, strong man to tell them what to do. And it's like, why do you want that? It's like you want a big, strong man who's going to tell everybody what to do and tell you what you want to hear. That just fucking sucks, man. You don't need a big, strong man to tell everybody what to do to have a strong country. If anything, it weakens your country. It's like something that decreases our freedom, something that minimizes human happiness. I think we all agree that authoritarianism is bad, I hope, for me and any reasonable or sentient people. Sure, there might be some non-sentient people that are like, actually, I think authoritarianism is based, I know, Hitler had a tendency to kill Jewish people, but, like, I mean, he some of his economic, no, I'm not engaging with that fucking cancer. Dude, I can't do this. Sorry, I'm up way too late. It is currently, I need to go to fucking bed o'clock in the morning. Am I gonna go to bed and sleep properly? Probably not. But I should at least try at some point in the near future. Um, Anyways, I don't know why this random rant phone stream thing got so many concurrents, but it did nonetheless. Maybe it's because it's election related, but my 5-hour stream was like, yeah, we're just not going to give you concurrence. We don't think you need any. But I'm sorry, Femyoz. We'll still fight for your rights to exist. Thank you, Telescope. Thank you. And thank you to everybody that's been supportive. I haven't been reading chat too much because, you know, I wish I checked YouTube sooner. No worries. It's okay. Billionaires are the ones in the driver's seat anyways. That is true. That is true. But some billionaires are going to have interests that are, well, more malicious than others. And those ones are the ones we have to fear the most, unfortunately. And I believe that in terms of who is the most malicious candidate, it's going to be Trump. Again, it's not confirmed that he's won, but we all kind of know at this point, based on polling data. I think I know why this stream is doing well, actually. It's because we got a lot of Trumpies here. You're like, yeah, I actually support Trump. It would be like contrarian or whatever, and I'm just like not even reading chat most of the time because I just don't care. I don't know. It's too much brain rot for me to sift through to see if like I find like the one out of 100,000 conservatives that exist that actually make arguments in good faith. Like, okay, awesome. I don't know. Maybe it's just because YouTube is brain rot. I don't know. Either way. Sorry that people are so nasty. You have a good night. Thank you. Feel free to subscribe. We appreciate you supporting Trump. You see, that's a classic. That's a classic. That's something I've done with Trump supporters. As like a bit, I'll be like, "You look like a Kamala Harris supporter. Or you look like a Biden supporter." I'll get like super mad. It's pretty funny. That's a good bit. I don't know if you stole it from me or not. If you did, I don't blame you for that. Anyways. Good night, Femyoz. Sleep well. Alright. Thank you. You too. Sub to Let's Go. Thank you. They just want to control shit. Yeah. Transphobia is honestly crazy in here. Yeah, whatever. It's a phone stream. I'm barely reading chat. Because it's like on my fucking tiny ass fucking phone, bro. It's like, oh god. Anyways, we're losing concurrence. Is it pink? Yes. Of course it is. Dude, it would never not be pink. Come on. Need to be respectful. Yeah, I don't know. They're boosting me in the algorithm. I don't really care. Whatever. I love you, feminists. You're awesome. I'm going to sleepy. Good night. Good night. Feel free to subscribe if you want more content, more high effort streams that are like not on my phone. We see you, trans pride. Let's go. You got this. Keep your chin up. Life will go on. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's like something that's disappointing, I guess. I'm also worried about other people that live in red states. That's the main thing I'm worried about because if any and all protections are removed that would otherwise be in place for the purposes of, you know, protecting them from smaller governments, then smaller governments that are more fascistic in nature, maybe not fascistic, but more right wing in nature, more authoritarian in nature, are going to restrict people's rights. Sleep well, clear your mind of all this before bed. Yeah. Because you won. Are you gonna leave the country? Yeah, dude. That's not, dude. Thanks for the suggestion. I didn't think of that. I'm just, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow morning and just go to Canada. Dude, thank you. An incredible analysis you've got. I'm sorry on behalf of Pennsylvania. No worries. Trump's evil. This is true. Yeah, I'm so worried about our siblings in the United States. No, literally, it's like, holy shit, what the fuck is gonna happen to trans people that live in Texas, in Florida? I mean, Florida's already a shithole. But now Florida has an opportunity to be an even bigger shithole. That's even worse and more authoritarian. Like, this is terrifying. Yes, Pennsylvania went red. Was not expecting that. But yeah, that shit sucks. Nothing should happen to y'all. You're no different than us. You are people too. Thank you, Taylor, for having some empathy for others. I appreciate that. Have a good night and don't let the dumb, ugly bedbugs bite. I mean, Trump, by the way. Real. Feel free to subscribe for more content, too. Sometimes I talk about politics. Usually I do some more lighthearted stuff that you might find entertaining. I'm like, I don't know, I do a lot of schizo posting. I'm gonna head to bed, but take care, Femyoz. You too, Fatal 263. People should accept queer people more. I agree. Coming from a third world country myself, you should be more grateful for the position you're in. I don't know, man. How about instead of typing in my chat, you go back to your country? I'm just kidding. But I mean, I am well within my rights to say yes. Authoritarianism is bad. It doesn't matter if there are third world countries that are even worse. It doesn't matter if you personally live in a shithole. That doesn't make authoritarianism good or justifiable or something I should just not care about. Anyways, we're welcoming here, hell yeah. Anyways, do you think the Dems are going to move further right? Oh yeah, absolutely. They do that every time. They're not going to become more progressive. Anyways, nothing wrong with being gay, but to be queer meaning all, dude, what do you think? Do you think that the meaning of words never changes over time? What? Weird or bizarre? Keep that behavior behind closed doors. What is the behavior? Like, if I'm talking about the queer community, what do you think I mean by that? Seems like we're using words differently. Feels good to be a square. It's so true. You are gorgeous. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Banaxi. USA is welcoming to those, allowing the welcome. We love all. It's separated by people that hate each other. I don't support either party or any other people's thoughts. I have my own. I can respect that, unless your thoughts are like, I don't know, like unhinged, like neo-Nazi ideology or some shit. I don't know. My thoughts are that actually, what if we could have Hitler instead? Like, okay, obviously, if those are your thoughts, then fuck me, dude. I assume you're like more of like an independent or centrist type, in which case I can usually. I feel like I'm better at reaching out to like independent centrist types because like when it comes to like MAGA conservatives, it's like whatever. These people are divorced from reality. There's like not much I can do. Like, what am I supposed to do? Show them evidence? They already see evidence and deny its existence. Like it's like this weird cycle of just denying reality. No, I just don't care. Okay, so you're apolitical. That's fine. That's fine. I love your outfit, by the way. I'm gonna try to sleep a bit. Have a good one. You too, Cody. You too. Anyways, good night, Femyoz. Good night, Athene. I hope you've enjoyed your stay. The whole system is corrupt. I agree, but we ought to minimize corruption as much as possible, right? So when I vote pragmatically, right? So I vote for Kamala, not on the basis of me thinking that she's going to make the government not corrupt, but because Trump is one of the most corrupt human beings on the planet, if I could even call him a human being. So that was sort of the argument behind it. Both sides all the time, yes, I agree that both sides are bad. That's only part of the equation. You have to evaluate which side is worse, and from there you can form a utilitarian calculation and vote based on that, right? Like if you don't vote, that's not going to magically make uh, the parties change in the way that you want. That's not how it works. They're not gonna be like, oh, that random Joe Schmo down the street didn't vote, so I guess we're gonna change our parties, right? Anyways, I voted on the facts. Me too. Yeah, vote for the lesser of two evils. You are emotional, bro? Yes, I am incredibly emotional as I describe how voting pragmatically is like a utilitarian calculation and harm reduction. That is like, dude, such an emotional argument right there. It's not like it's grounded in a meta-ethical framework or anything. Again, if you want to debate the framework itself, okay, go ahead, but fucking good luck. Anyways, where was I going with this? Chat, I'm getting EP. Chat, do you think if I restart stream and just like private this one that it'll make the concurrence go to like 400 again? Because that's what it did. It was like, yeah, we're gonna make your concurrence like 400 at first. I don't know why it did that, but yeah, pragmatic voting, like voting pragmatically, like not voting because you support the candidate you're voting for, but just voting for like the least bad option or like the best possible outcome, right? And maximizing the likelihood of that happening, right? Not because you approve of them, but because you're reducing harm, right? It's more along the lines of having like a harm reduction as a principle, I guess, if you want to make it really simple. Like I don't have to get into we don't have to get into the meta ethical territory if you don't want. I would assume you wouldn't want to if you're like normal in the slightest. So I guess if you have the principle of harm reduction, I guess is a good way of putting it for normies. Oh wow, indeed. I gotta go. All this banning is tiring. Dude, maybe that's why we lost all the concurrence, because they all got banned. Dude, it was a bunch of Trump supporters. I don't know. I don't know if I got like any actual like I don't know. I don't know how many of the people were like supporting me or whatever. Not as emotional as Trump and his clown car of supporters. Fair point. Fair point. You know, I'd love to see Trump try to make a meta-ethical argument. This chat is hilarious. It can be. I'll give you that. Anyways. But yeah. I think that if yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm also worried that the very structure of the executive branch is going to change in a way where power is more centralized, right? Which is counterintuitive, but that's what policies Trump is in favor of, right? Like he can claim that he wants to decentralize power all he wants, whatever, decentralize. He doesn't even claim that anymore. That's what libertarians or right wing libertarians might claim. But he wants to centralize power. So for any libertarians out there, I mean, do you want more centralized power? Do you want all of the power in the executive branch to be centralized to one person that's like in charge of everything? Do you think that would be like really based and red pilled? Or do you think it'd actually be better if like, I don't know. I don't even know why I'm making these arguments. It's like whatever. It's not going to change the election results. But I do think it's worth anticipating what's bound to happen. Obviously, there are going to be useless tax cuts on large corporations. Oh, but Femyoz, wouldn't that stimulate the economy because they'd be able to have more money to increase supply? No, that's actually not the case, right? It's actually going to be the reverse, right? So if it's the case that they're getting taxed less on, say, for instance, their income or their amount of profit, whatever, then they have more incentive to just make more profit and hoard it, right? They can just keep the profit, right? But keep in mind, revenue in of itself is not being taxed. So if it's the case that, say, for instance, income is taxed at a higher rate, then there would be an incentive structure for the corporation to turn as much of that revenue as possible into investments, whether it be investing in inventory or whatever it may be, in their products, you name it, thus bolstering the supply side of the economy, right? And also bolstering the consumer side of the economy, right? So everything gets bolstered. The consumer side because like that wealth is going to benefit them, right? So that's going to bolster the consumer base. But the supply of companies is also going to increase, right? What else? Border. I'm guessing that Trump is going to do not much useful, like not very much useful stuff at the border. It's going to be more along the lines of like finding like, oh, here are like a few illegal immigrants. I guess we'll put them in like a little, definitely not concentration camp. And he's just going to completely ignore the fact that the asylum seeking process is how most immigrants go into our country. And that the reason that they seek asylum instead of going through the normal legal process of immigrating, even if they don't need to seek asylum, is because the regular process of immigrating legally is incredibly bogged down. It's incredibly slow, and the amount of time you'd have to wait is absurdly long. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to get in some instances, right? So the people that are seeking asylum aren't like whatever, like violent criminals either. They're not like trying to come here illegally. It's literally just the path of least resistance, right? Nobody wants to be illegal, right? Because that just allows the corporation that they work for to pay them below minimum wage, which would obviously be such a substantial loss of money that any income tax that they wouldn't have to pay would not be worth it, right? Because they wouldn't really have to pay much income tax if they're working minimum wage regardless. So yeah, because obviously if they were to whatever say, hey, by the way, this corporation is paying me below minimum wage, it's like, oh, oop, deported, right? There's not really an incentive to be an illegal immigrant unless it's the path of least resistance, right? But again, Trump is going to just resist immigration altogether. He's not going to make the legal path the path of least resistance, which is what he should do, right? So fix the asylum seeking process and fix the legal immigration process so it's easier. Trump doesn't want to do that. Trump doesn't want to do either of these things, right? He just wants big, tall structure. He wants a big, tall structure with his name on it. So he could be like, guys, I built the greatest wall. But it's like, okay, but most illegals are not here from crossing the border just like casually, all willy-nilly. It's usually just people seeking asylum. So like you don't even understand the problem or you just don't care. How there was also a bill that would have prevented or helped prevent illegal immigrants from entering the country that Trump could have signed and chose not to. So it could be a campaign issue again for him to run on again. It's like he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a fuck about you. Like, I don't know why you think he does. I'm not even saying Kamala Harris gives a fuck about you. Frankly, I don't think that any of these people do. But like this idea that Trump is authentic, that he cares about the American population, is just a fucking lie. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't even respect you enough to tell you the truth. To me, that's fucking pathetic. Anyways, with that being said, I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna end this stream in particular. I'm gonna unlist it. Yeah, I'll catch y'all later. I might start another one if I'm not tired enough to fall asleep. And yeah, subscribe, smash like, and I'll see you all later. Good night.